Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on BetOnline's $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the games are over, head to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to betonline.ag today to get in on the action. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. State of State is proud to partner with Illumination Brewing for another season of crafting State IPA, the perfect tailgate and game day beer for Penn State football fans. State IPA is available now at your local beer distributor, grocery store, plus select bars and restaurants. Visit illuminationbrewing.com/beer/state-IPA to learn more. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Also, State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today, and keep an eye out for State of State apparel coming soon. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State. I'm Tom Hannafin, flying solo today for what should be an interesting time for Penn State football fans in this 2024 season. In week 2, at home, Penn State barely got by a MAC opponent. Penn State defeats Bowling Green by a score of 34-27. And this one was an absolute head-scratcher in a day where college football was tumultuous, to say the least. But I'm going to attempt to get into this, and I promise in this Wednesday's edition, considering we have a bye week and plenty of time to process this game, myself and Justin King will be doing a very deep dive on what went wrong and the few things that went right for Penn State in this week 2 victory. Like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications, get at us on social media at State of State Pod, and comment on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, you can become a member of our YouTube channel now for just 99 cents a month, and you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free, so you can get all the insight and all the reactions to these games without any pesky advertisements. So thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. The initial reaction from this game is kind of like, what the hell was that? It's extremely confusing for this team to have looked as solid, as impressive as it did on the road against a Big 12 opponent to open the season. And considering what many believe West Virginia can be within the Big 12 and this season altogether, there was reason for a lot of positivity for this Penn State football team. And Justin and I even talked about it in the episodes following the West Virginia game, is that Penn State's going to kind of fade into the background a little bit here in September because, okay, you got Bowling Green, then you have a bye week, then you have Kent State, then you open up Big Ten play against Illinois and UCLA, and then you're at USC. We'll get to that in a minute. But seriously, this felt like the time of year where it was like, you know what, these are going to be winnable games for Penn State. This is a chance to get your backups in and really see what your depth looks like for later on in the season. This was anything but. Bowling Green, to their credit, came out trying to win this game, guns a-blazing, and all the credit to what they were able to accomplish today at Beaver Stadium. The first thing I think you have to start with is the defense. Is how in the world do you give up 375 yards of total offense to Bowling Green? And especially when you're looking at the passing game, Connor Bazelak was 25-39, 254 yards, 64% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, and yes, 2 interceptions. So those were very positive by Tom Allen's defense. And then rushing the football, 26 carries for 121 yards on the ground. So about a 4.7 yard average among 4 rushers. And last week, that was about 2.5 yards per carry against West Virginia. So it's extremely difficult to say what was the difference here. Was this just a drastically better Bowling Green team than West Virginia? Time will tell. It also seemed like defensively, there were lapses in the secondary. The tackling was not good. The defensive line was getting pushed around a substantial amount. There was the rushing touchdown by Jamal Johnson, just right up the middle, 41 yards for the touchdown. And you could hear how Matt Millen on the call was talking about how the interior of the Penn State offensive line was simply just moved. Credit to what Bowling Green was able to accomplish there, but still, this was very much night and day from what Penn State did against West Virginia. Not only the defensive line getting pushed around a lot, but then being able to get to the second level, to be able to get hat on hat with Penn State's linebackers and even the safeties, to the point that Bowling Green was having success in that department. Looking at Connor Bazelak, we talked about it coming into this. Tom Allen, having coached Bazelak at Indiana, one would have presumed that the defensive strategy would have been outstanding and quite sound, and that Bazelak would have really struggled against Tom Allen, potentially knowing all his weaknesses, strengths, weaknesses, all those things. And instead, Bowling Green showed the ability to get the ball out very quickly. Our colleague within this world of Penn State sports podcasting, Thomas Frank Carr, was very astute to point out the issues with Penn State's pass rush, but those were also coupled with the fact that Connor Bazelak was getting the ball out in roughly 2 seconds. So he was doing a very good job. I want to give Bowling Green credit for what they did, because they brought the fight to Penn State and damn near upset the Nittany Lions at home. So it's alarming. How does Tom Allen prepare for this team and not have an answer for the way Bazelak played? Now, a veteran quarterback, we talked about that coming into this game, 25, 39, 254 yards, as I mentioned. Very, very positive. He hung in the pocket. He made this really difficult for Penn State. And the secondary, something was up. Something was up. And for me, as a broadcaster and as a fan from the outside looking in, you do have to speculate if the players were expecting to win, which is a fine mentality to have, but are you expecting to win so badly that you underestimate your opponent? There's been so much said about James Franklin and the culture and the coaching staff that he's put together over now 11 years at Penn State. And there's constantly this culture that you hear about, that James Franklin and his staff, they never overlook any opponent. They're always trying to do the 1-0 mentality, all that sort of stuff. But it's very difficult to look at this game and think that there's a possibility the bulk of the roster was just assuming that the team could show up and win this game and coast into a bye week in the middle of September. And then Kent State, as I mentioned, that this is the easiest stretch of their schedule that they're going to see. Instead, what happened was Penn State was alarming its fan base. And the defensive side of the ball, lack of pass rush. Abdul Carter, yes, had a couple of flashes, but they're still waiting to see that dominance, that quote-unquote menace that we heard about from training camp that he's apparently evolved into, is capable of being. The secondary was having an extremely tough day. Zakee Wheatley did come away with the interception late. Tony Rojas came away with a great interception late. Rojas played as well as he possibly could have, I think, under the circumstances. Overall, lots of arm tackling from the defense. Zakee Wheatley, ironically enough, was all over social media this past week going at people from Pro Football Focus because apparently they had given a higher grade for the likes of KJ Winston and Jalen Reed and a very low grade for the way Zakee Wheatley played against West Virginia. And Wheatley astutely pointed out that, yes, it's extremely difficult for Pro Football Focus to be able to grade every single play for the defense because they don't know what the call is. They're guessing often based on alignment and guessing based off of the way that the secondary ultimately plays a play. But you never know if there's little wrinkles here and there where it's not as easy for the eye to see. I can understand Wheatley's point. He went off about it on social media at length and then got burned quite a bit in this game, gave up a touchdown, gave up a lot of big plays. Cam Miller also had a rough day. Flashbacks to the Peach Bowl. Very, very uncharacteristic from this defensive back room for Penn State. On the offensive side of the ball for Penn State, I think the positive thing to take away from this is Drew Aller in the running game. And hats off to Tyler Warren, most receiving yards in a single game for a Penn State tight end. Now, there's positives to take away from this. Drew Aller ultimately finished the game 13 of 20 for 204 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the interception. The interception really was going to have to bother him, but he had 7 carries for 7 yards total and a touchdown. It was a tough day for Aller. This Bowling Green defense got after him, and James Franklin gave that defensive line especially a lot of credit earlier on this week, saying that they had impressed the Penn State coaching staff. So again, you're still sitting there being like, okay, well, this offensive line should be better than them. They just withstood what West Virginia was able to throw at them, arguably a better opponent. How did this possibly happen? Penn State's tackles had a rough day. Drew Shelton, especially at left tackle. We have to remind ourselves of what Penn State lost at offensive tackle on both sides with Caden Wallace and Olu Fashanu. This is something I've been concerned about all offseason. The interior of the offensive line is sound. Nick Dawkins, we also have to remember, is in his first year as the true starter at center. So there are things where he is learning. As much as he has played so much football, he is learning. All due respect to him, but I'm sure he would admit that. I give a lot of credit to Drew Aller because he showed consistency. He showed intensity. He showed the ability to hang in there. And a lot of the reasons why Penn State, and I think it's insane to have to say, but like made a comeback against Bowling Green and ultimately won the game. Yes, you can point at the running game, but Drew Aller kept this offense moving. He did a very nice job. And Tyler Warren came up with some huge plays altogether for Penn State's offense. Speaking of the pass catchers, as I mentioned, Tyler Warren, 8 catches, 146 yards on 8 targets, 18.3 yards per reception is just crazy. Amari Evans, 2 catches, 34 yards, and the touchdown. Touchdown was very nice. Nick Singleton catching a touchdown pass as well, his lone catch. Khalil Dinkins back into the fold. Penn State had a good amount of their linebackers unavailable for this game, and I believe Andrew Rappleyea was unavailable for this game. So Rappleyea unavailable, Dinkins becomes available, so you have a little bit of fluctuation in that department. Julian Fleming gets his first catch of the season for 3 yards of no consequence. No targets for Liam Clifford and no targets for Trey Wallace, which very, very interesting that Bowling Green was able to take away arguably Penn State's number 1 pass catching option. But I have said it for most of the offseason is that I believe Tyler Warren is the true number 1 receiver in this offense. I think that Trey Wallace showed he is the number 1 wide receiver in this offense last week. But Tyler Warren proved to be just an absolute mismatch. And this is the weird thing about this game. It was still a Big Ten opponent against the MAC opponent. And that physical mismatch of Tyler Warren against this Bowling Green defense was evident. And Penn State is still going to see those opportunities as this season wears on and you get into Big Ten play. You're still going to have games where Tyler Warren is the best combination of size and speed from a receiver standpoint that a defense is going to have to deal with potentially all season long. He is capable of being that Brock Bowers-esque center of the offense, if you recall the way Georgia's offense operated the last few years. Am I comparing him directly to Brock Bowers? No, but a similar utilization. I think Warren has the potential to get to be like that, but I digress. Drew Aller was under duress quite a bit in this game, and I give him credit for hanging in there. I loved his tenacity early on in the game, rushing for the touchdown. That was certainly a shot in the arm for Penn State. His enthusiasm and his energy, I think, was a boost for Penn State. And then when it came to the running game, this was exactly what Penn State needed. And I come back to the conversation that we've been having about what is Andy Kotelnicki's offense really going to be? And the emphasis on the running game has been something that's been talked about heavily since he came onto campus. 37 total carries, 234 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 6.3 yards per carry. Nick Singleton, 13 for 119 yards, a touchdown, a long of 41, an average of 9.2. Katron Allen got himself back into the conversation after kind of a slow start against West Virginia. West Virginia did a nice job scheming for Penn State's interior run defense, so credit to the Mountaineers there. But Katron Allen got himself going against Bowling Green. 14 carries, 101 yards on the ground, no touchdowns, a long of 26, and 7.2 yards on average. So it was really nice to see the two-headed monster doing those things. You see Bo Burbula getting involved from his package, Drew Aller. The ability to extend the plays and the ability to pick up a first down or two, and as I mentioned, the touchdown, it's so valuable. And it's something that James Franklin has talked about, is the way that he's changed his body, the way that he can contribute to this running game. It's so helpful because it just erases these small plays here and there where maybe the defense just has you locked up. And unfortunately, in this game, there were too many of those instances. So I'm just thrilled that the rushing attack has continued to be a focus through 2 games, has continued to be consistent through 2 games. And again, as much as Penn State fans might not love it, balance between the Penn State passing attack and the Penn State rushing attack. And I'm not saying Penn State fans dislike balance, but I think in this game, it would have been a reasonable expectation for a Penn State fan to want to see video game numbers for everybody because it's a MAC opponent. So this is just a very weird outcome. And it's the adage you hear all the time of Justin King talks about it. James Franklin certainly talks about it, of it's hard to win in college football. I'm not using that as a cop-out by any means, but the adversity of being down in this game and making a comeback is something that is going to be good for the DNA of Penn State as the season continues. But overall, this is very, very, very concerning. You get a bye week, then you have Kent State, and then you dive into Big Ten play. Apparently, this bye week is coming at a really opportune time. You have the proverbial bumps and bruises remaining from training camp, a very physical training camp, which again, the defense needs to figure out this Jekyll and Hyde stuff that we just saw from week 1 to week 2. Week 1 at West Virginia, they looked lights out, like one of the best defenses in the country. Week 2, it seemed like they underestimated their opponent. Not maximum effort. So what's the overall takeaway from this? I now have tremendous concerns for games like USC, not that I didn't already. I now have tremendous concerns for Wisconsin because that is more of an air raid style offense. You have worries for the Washington game beyond what you already had. You certainly have worries for the Ohio State game. There are just a lot more games on the schedule that you see the way that these offenses can operate. If you can get the ball out quickly against Penn State, their secondary struggled immensely in this game. So there's a lot more that we're going to be able to dive into later on this week. Myself and Justin King are really going to take our time and sit with us and figure out what went wrong and the few things that did go right. Hats off to Haydak being able to get himself into a groove in this game. 2 for 2 on field goals, a long of 43. The shorter one was 28. Struggled against West Virginia, was somebody that was battling during training camp. So that was a positive for Penn State, but there is so much to be repaired coming out of this game. So Justin and I are going to do a complete deep dive on what the hell happened during this game later on this week. Like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications, follow us on social media, and get at us at State of State Pod. And you can also comment here on YouTube. We appreciate that so much. And don't forget, you can sign up and become a member of our YouTube channel right now for just 99 cents a month and get all upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free. In order to do that, you hit the join button on the home channel, or you follow the link in the description of this podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in for this game recap. This was a weird one. Penn State able to pull it out by a score of 34-27 against Bowling Green. And thankfully, we have a bye week now.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, let us know what you think of the show on social media and check out all of our content on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Search for the handle @StateOfStatePod. State of State is presented by Bet Online and by Blue White Outfitters.